Looks like, yes, we are live. Hello and welcome back to another episode. This is episode number 7 of A Roadmap for a Moral Society. And the topic tonight is specifically, we're going to be going through equity and justice. So without any more delay, let's go ahead and... unfortunately, our normal hosts, Gilbert Hakim and John Pills, cannot be with us tonight. Actually, I believe John's going to be able to swing by in a little bit. But unfortunately, our main guest is traveling, and so he cannot be here. But we will carry on. So tonight's topic is equity and justice. Equity, the quality of being fair and impartial. It refers to the fair and just distribution of resources and opportunities. It ensures that everyone has an equal chance to succeed, regardless of their background or circumstances. Justice is the concept of fairness and righteousness in the way that laws and systems are implemented and enforced. So this little picture here kind of gives you a quick view of the difference between equity and equality. So the term equity refers to fairness and justice and is distinguished from equality. Whereas equality means providing the same to all, equity means recognizing that we do not start from the same place and must acknowledge and make adjustments to imbalances. The process is ongoing, requiring us to identify and overcome intentional and unintentional barriers arising from bias or systemic structures. Caroline, would it be possible to have you read this about justice?
Sure. Justice, just behavior or treatment, in its broadest sense, is the principle that people receive that which they deserve, with the interpretation of what then constitutes deserving, being impacted upon by numerous fields with many different viewpoints and perspectives, including the concepts of moral correctness based on ethics, rationality, law, religion, equity, and fairness. The state will sometimes endeavor to increase justice by operating courts and enforcing their rulings.
Thank you. So justice is the concept of fairness and righteousness in the way that laws, institutions, and individuals are held accountable. It is the principle of moral and legal fairness, which ensures that all individuals are treated equitably and that their rights are protected. Justice can be divided into 3 categories: distributive justice, retributive justice, and corrective justice. Distributive justice concerns the fair distribution of goods and resources in a society. Retributive justice is the punishment of criminals in proportion to their crime, and corrective justice is the rehabilitation of criminals and the restoration of order to society. Now we're going to get a little history in regards to how some of the common symbols of justice came about. Can I have a volunteer to read?
Why justice is a woman. Portraying justice as a female figure dates back to the depictions of Themis and Justitia in ancient mythology. Themis, known for her clear-sightedness, was the Greek goddess of justice and law. In Roman mythology, Justitia's justice was one of the four virtues along with prudence, fortitude, and temperance.
So, the portrayal of women as symbols of justice is a long-standing tradition in Western art and culture. One theory is that it stems from the ancient Greek goddess Themis, who personified divine law and order. Themis was often depicted as a woman holding a set of scales, symbolizing her role in weighing the merits of different cases and dispensing fair judgment. Another theory is that the portrayal of women as symbols of justice is a reflection of the historical role women as caretakers and nurturers in society, and the association of these qualities with fairness and impartiality. Additionally, in many cultures, women were historically seen as the moral compass of society and were responsible for upholding values such as integrity and fairness. This may also be contributed to the association of women with justice. And I believe the name is for it's who was it? It's pronounced Justicia. Yeah, Justicia is, I believe, the way that the Justici is pronounced. I had to actually look it up myself. All right, next. So this is interesting. This is just a depiction of Roman mythology, female deities, and actually this image I created using artificial intelligence to generate it in a matter of seconds. It's technology is definitely going to change the way in which we all operate, that's for sure. So we have the Roman mythology female deities, specifically Juno, Venus, Vesta, Minerva, Diana, and Bellona. Let's see, Juno is the universal principle and mother goddess. Venus, the goddess of love. Vesta, the goddess of domestic life. Minerva, the goddess of wisdom, intelligence, and handicrafts. Diana, the goddess of feral life, nature, hunting, and Bellona, the goddess of war. And this is just another depiction and rendition of these mythical figures. And now we're going to talk about Immanuel Kant. Caroline, would you mind reading, please? Or Sharon?
I don't mind.
Oh, excuse me.
First, justice is concerned only with external actions by which one person can influence another, whether directly or indirectly. Second, justice is not concerned with the desires, wishes, or needs of other people. These matters pertain to the voluntary virtues of benevolence and charity, whereas justice is concerned with whether or not we respect the equal freedom of others to live their lives as they see fit. Third, justice is concerned solely with the form of interpersonal relationships, not with their content.
Thank you, Sharon. So Immanuel Kant was a German philosopher who lived in the 18th century. He is considered to be one of the most influential figures in modern philosophy, and his work had a major impact on the development of ethical and political theory. Kant's views on justice are outlined in his work Metaphysics of Morals, around 1797, I think, where he argues that justice is a matter of universal laws that apply to all rational beings. He believed that justice is based on the concepts of the categorical imperative, which is the idea that moral laws must be universal and apply to all people without exception. He argued that the only moral action is one that can be willed as a universal law, meaning that it should be able to be able to be applied to everyone without contradiction. Kant believed that the principles of justice must be grounded in the concept of human dignity, which he defined as the inherent worth of all rational beings. He believed that all individuals should be treated as ends in themselves and never used as a means to an end. Therefore, he argued that individuals have a right to basic liberties, and that the state should exist to protect those rights. So I guess in summary, you can say that Kant believed that justice is a matter of universal laws that apply to all rational beings and is grounded in the concept of human dignity. He emphasized the importance of treating all individuals as ends in themselves and protecting their basic rights and liberties. And just in case anyone has a question, the definition of the categorical imperative is a concept developed by Immanuel Kant in his moral philosophy. It is a moral rule that states that an action is morally right if it can be made into a universal law that applies to all rational beings. In other words, if an action is morally right for you, it must be morally right for everyone else in similar circumstances. Kant argued that the only moral actions are those that can be willed as a universal law without contradiction. This means that actions that are only right in certain situations or for certain people are not truly moral actions. For example, if an action is only morally right because it leads to a desirable outcome, it is not a moral action according to Kant. But if an action is morally right because it is in line with the universal moral law, that action is truly moral. In summary, a categorical imperative is a moral rule stating that an action is morally right if it can be made into a universal law that applies to all rational beings, and that the only moral actions are those that can be willed as a universal law without any contradiction. So that's quite a bit. Does anyone have any questions with regard to that, or should we move on? Okay. Equity. Can I have someone read this, please?
Equity, aquitas, regarded objectively, does not properly constitute a claim upon the moral duty of benevolence or benefits on the part of others. But whoever insists upon anything on the ground of equity founds upon his right to the same. In this case, however, the conditions are wanting that are requisite for the function of a judge in order that might determine what or what kind of satisfaction can be done to this claim.
Yeah, so the this definition is discussing the concept of equity as it relates to the idea of a claim or a right to something. The definition is saying that equity does not create a moral duty for others to be benevolent or charitable towards someone. However, when someone makes a claim based on equity, they are asserting their right to something. So I guess in summary, this definition is saying that equity is not a moral duty of others, but when someone asserts their right to something on the ground of equity, they are making a claim. It's not always clear how to determine what is fair in a given situation, and it could be difficult for a judge to make a decision based off of that, I guess. Equity is about fairness and making sure everyone has the same opportunities to succeed. It's about giving people what they need to do well, rather than treating everyone the same. An example here is, imagine a teacher giving extra help to a student who is struggling so that they can catch up with the rest of the class. That's equity. Or a basketball coach giving more playing time to a player who needs more practice to to improve their skills so that they can perform better in the game. That's equity as well. So I guess it's about making sure everyone has what they need to be successful, regardless of their background or circumstances. Does anyone else have any thoughts or comments about that?
So it appears to me that from the point of view of the observer, equity is not necessarily viewed as a just action, right? Because if someone is going to require more in order to be able to accomplish that which they can potentially achieve, might not appear to be as justified by someone else who is living in the same society and does not wish for the boat of equality, to be shaken. I mean, we have big problems in the society today because of the concept of equity. People are objecting to that. I'm not suggesting that it is incorrect. I'm just saying that it depends on how other people are going to be looking at it. So it will not appear as justified in the eyes of the beholder. It might not necessarily appear as justified, but it is.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, I understand that observation, Kamran, and I don't think you're far off from that observation, at least from my perspective. I see that, but I think in the context of what we're discussing here tonight, it's definitely equity and justice are actually used as pillars. So we're going to get to justice here in a minute, and matter of fact, let's go to the next slide. Can I have someone read this slide, please?
The strictest right is the greatest wrong. Summum jus summa injuria. But this evil cannot be obviated by the forms of right, although it relates to a matter of right, for the grievance that it gives rise to can only be put before a court of conscience, forum poli, whereas every question of right must be taken before a civil court, forum soli.
Okay, so this quote is saying that when the strictest interpretation of the law or the greatest exercise of one's legal rights causes harm or injustice to others, it becomes a wrong law. It suggests that the strict application of laws and rights can sometimes lead to negative consequences, such as causing harm or injustice to others. The quote also states that this problem cannot be solved by simply following the forms of the law, meaning that the legal system itself cannot always address the issues that arise from the strict application of the law. Instead, it suggests that these issues must be brought before a court of conscience, meaning a court that deals with moral and ethical questions rather than just legal ones. So in summary, the quote is saying that when the strictest interpretation of the law causes harm or injustice to others, it becomes a wrong and cannot be solved just by following legal forms. Instead, it needs to be brought before a court that deals with moral and ethical questions. Here's the interesting part, though. The United States does not have a specific court system that is referred to as a court of conscience, as the phrase is used in the quote. It's a concept that is drawn from the philosophy of Immanuel Kant and is not a legally recognized court system in the United States. However, in the United States, there are various court systems and legal mechanisms that address moral and ethical issues, such as courts of equity, administrative tribunals, and alternative dispute resolution. These courts and tribunals often rely on principles of fairness, justice, and equity, which could be seen as addressing some of the concerns that would be brought before a court of conscience as described in Kant's philosophy. Um, the United States legal system relies heavily on the principle of the rule of law, which holds that all people are subject to the law and that the law must be applied equally and fairly. The courts are designed to ensure that laws are applied fairly and that justice is served. So in a way, I guess it serves as a court of conscience in that sense, that it ensures that the laws are applied in a fair and just way. At least in principle, right?
In principle.
So, you know, and I think, you know, excuse me, I think people often do have that disclaimer, that in principle disclaimer, because the reality is we don't live in a perfect world. If we did, we wouldn't have need of the manifestations to come and continually teach us, correct? So, but it's also understanding that there's room for improvement and there's room to build and continually progress, but it works by, you know, implementing that concept of equity and justice, and making sure that when we do these things, that we apply those to ourselves and to our, you know, to individuals in our community. Any thoughts on this, Kamran or Amira, Rose?
A lot of thoughts.
You know, actually, I believe that we as Baha'is have to get into the business of translating some of this language into something that is more understandable by the people of the time, because basically you have a philosopher who is coming along and talking about the universal law and the court of conscience, and then the United States, the forefathers of the United States, define justice in the context of basically the laws that have been established by a group of mindful individuals that we call human beings. As Baha'is, I think we have far better definitions of what these things are supposed to be, and I think it would do us well if we can get out there and be able to convey that to people so people can better understand. When a group of people get together and attempt to draw up a law, basically we're looking at a two-dimensional structure where a decision has been made based on the outlook of all these individuals who have gotten together, and you're looking at their surrounding, and based on the area of their understanding, they make that judgment. However, we Baha'is introduced the concept of the manifestation of God, which addresses the heart of what our philosopher is talking about, Kant is talking about here, where Baha'u'llah is no longer talking about a two-dimensional decision. He's talking about a three-dimensional decision, because Baha'u'llah is no longer at the level of human beings. He is in the world of command. So it is like he is providing us with a bird's eye view. So if an individual can basically, if we are going to make a judgment upon regarding reconnaissance, for example, and we are standing on the ground, we are going to have a limited reconnaissance. If we go on the top of a mountain, our reconnaissance is going to increase. Now, if we can move up to the stratosphere, our reconnaissance is going to become far more valuable because our outlook has expanded. And Baha'u'llah does that for us, which brings us to what this universal law is, where he's giving us this three-dimensional view where we can look beyond the existing definition of what is right and what is wrong, and we can look well beyond the element of time, so we can make decisions that are still justified 200 years from now or 300 years from now. Sorry for being long-winded here.
Can I add a thought,
Please.
please? If you've ever, part of my work is attending criminal courts and so forth, and I think the previous speaker has actually added a dimension that until that is incorporated in terms of our legal systems, if you've ever been into a court yourself, a lot of that, there is no moral foundation. It's a battle, and sometimes it's a drama, and justice isn't served in terms of having a moral premise in which to obtain justice by. So it works 60% of the time for a particular group of people, but people who don't fit that group of people, very rarely the outcome for them is one in their favour. So my point of just saying this, we can no longer ask for equity and justice until the law, according to Baha'u'llah, as in regards justice consists of rendering each one her due, and every soul must receive a recompense for his or her deeds. Until we are able to actually get a moral basis in which to serve justice in court systems, it fails very many people. Just a thought.
Thank you, Sharon. And of course, you know, again, the system as it stands is not perfect, and there's still much work to be done. Let's see what we can do with justice and equity in this next slide. Can I have someone read this, please?
Justice and equity. Son of Spirit, the best beloved of all things in my sight is justice. Turn not away therefrom if thou desirest me, and neglect it not that I may confide in thee. By its aid thou shalt see with thine own eyes, and not through the eyes of others, and shalt know of thine own knowledge, and not through the knowledge of thy neighbor. Ponder this in thy heart, how it behooveth thee to be. Verily justice is my gift to thee, and the sign of my loving kindness. Set it then before thine eyes. Arabic Hidden Words, number 2.
Thank you. This quote is from, as you said, the Arabic Hidden Words, which is a collection of writings attributed to Baha'u'llah, the founder of the Baha'i Faith. The quote expresses the importance of justice and how it is considered one of the most beloved things in the eyes of the divine. It encourages the reader to strive for justice and to not turn away from it. If they wish to be close to the divine and to be trusted, the quote also states that through justice, one will be able to see and know things for themselves rather than relying on the opinions and perceptions of others. It encourages the reader to ponder the importance of justice in their own lives and how it is necessary for them to be. Justice is also presented as a gift from the divine and a sign of the divine's loving kindness. In summary, the quote is emphasizing the importance of justice in the eyes of the divine and encourages the reader to strive for justice in their own life. It states that justice allows for the ability to see and know things for oneself rather than relying on the opinions of others. And it is a gift from God and a sign of the divine's loving kindness. Can I have someone read this quote, please?
The essence of all that we have revealed for thee is justice. It's for a man to free himself from idle fancy and imitation. Discern with the eye of oneness his glorious handiwork, and look into all things with a searching eye. the end of tablet of essence. Or, okay.
Kamran, would you be able to pronounce that for us, please?
Lohe Ra'us.
Can you say that a little louder? You're kind of soft.
Lohe Ra'us, or the tablet of the essences.
Thank you.
Okay.
So this quote is also from Baha'i text. It states that the main focus of the teachings revealed by the divine is justice. The quote is encouraging the reader to free themselves from superficial beliefs and to examine the world around them with a discerning and perceptive eye. The goal is to see the world as it truly is and to understand the divine handiwork that is present in all things. So it's emphasizing the importance of being discerning, of being able to see the essence of things, and not being swayed by superficial or shallow appearances. The essence of all teachings is justice. It encourages the reader to be attentive and to look deeply into the world, and to use their own eyes and minds to understand the truth of things, and to see the divine handiwork in all things. So it's just the importance of justice, and it's just emphasizing again the teachings of the Baha'i Faith and encouraging the reader to be discerning, to look deeply into the world and to understand the truth of things, rather than being swayed by what you might see in the media and in your specific circles of friend groups and peers and that kind of thing. All right. Can I have someone read this, please?
Tell, O Ali, the loved ones of God, that equity is the most fundamental among human virtues. The evaluation of all things must needs depend upon it. He that is unjust in his judgment is destitute of the characteristics that distinguishes man's station.
So does anyone have any
this comes
quote?
from a tablet that's called اقتدارات و چند لوح دیگر.
So do you have any thoughts about this, Kamran? Sorry.
Well, it is one of the fundamental characteristics of the faith, as you indicated, both equity as well as justice. We really need to be able to treat things with equity. Actually, if you look at, for example, there is a fundamental aspect of the Kitab al-Aqdas where, for example, if you refer to the laws related to the distribution of wealth after the passing of the individual, Baha'u'llah applies the notion of equity, the concept of equity to that. You do not see equality in there, but you see equity. If we look into that, I mean, this is not a framework for us to consider that. However, I just like to offer that as an example where rather than equality, equity is presented as the framework in order to establish justice as we move throughout life in the society.
So what do you think about this last sentence, though? He that is unjust in his judgment is destitute of the characteristics that distinguish man's station.
Well, basically a human being is a human being because they can react to the manifestation of God and can ascend above the edicts of intelligence. The human intelligence is made to make an individual to be able to survive the best in this life. And that's one aspect of it. Another aspect is the fruit of mind, which allows a human being to find things that other animals cannot find. Now, if we do not react to the manifestation of God, and through that reaction find the capability to be able to make these judgments, basically we reduce ourselves to be the most intelligent animals, not a true human being. And that is what Baha'u'llah is alluding to here. That do not just rely on your intelligence. You really need to be able to interact with me in order to be able to ascend to the level that you can be called a true human being.
So could you say that essentially it's emphasizing the importance of fairness and impartiality in judging and evaluating things, and it's highlighting this idea that fairness is one of the essential characteristics that distinguish human beings from others, like animals, etc.?
Exactly. I mean, look at the law of the jungle. There is no fairness in there, right? Fairness is a particular characteristic that distinguishes a human being from an animal.
Okay, can I have someone read this quote, please?
By the life of God, the word equity shineth bright and resplendent even as the sun. We pray God to graciously shed his radiance upon everyone.
Okay, so this quote from the writings, again, it's believed to be Baha'u'llah, is emphasizing the importance and brightness of the virtue of equity, comparing it to the radiance of the sun. The quote is expressing a strong belief in the value of fairness and impartiality. It's also being expressed as a prayer or a wish that the radiance of equity, the fairness and impartiality will be shed upon everyone, meaning that it's a wish that fairness and impartiality will be present and available for all people. So not just, Americans, not just, Europeans, but for the entirety of all humanity. Does anyone have any thoughts?
I do,
Go ahead.
of course. I mean, it's a very philosophical statement, and I agree with all that's being said. But I'm here as a human individual trying to realign equity with what my life experience has showed me the absence of. So I feel that defining for individuals what that really is enables them from a source that they can trust to start to practice it, not according to what they think it could be, because obviously equity, if you just glimpse locally, regionally, nationally, internationally, equity would be a very scarce resource. So how to start real equity probably is to define what that would mean locally, regionally, nationally, and internationally, and have the biggest impact, taking all that has been said into account. But each of us has to wrestle with that on a daily basis. Have we been fair? Have we been just? When we have a dilemma, an issue, where do we go for guidance to see that, okay, I think I'm being right and fair and just, but in reality, I could be creating devastating harm. Just a thought. Thank you.
That's also why we're told in the writings to bring thyself to account each day, right? Because by, I guess in theory, if we can reflect from an individual basis, and if you imagine the entire world doing that, then they can recognize some of the deficiencies that we've had throughout our day and make adjustments for the next day, right?
Yes,
And that's all.
exactly.
Did you have something to say, Simone?
Yes, I
Please.
want to say to equity, we can, as a Baha'i, we can have in our businesses. So, and we have to be doing more deeds, not words. So when we say equity, we have to put it into practice within our family, within our businesses. So if you go outside in business and they are overcharging the poor people with very high prices for any kind of services, it can be law, real estate, it can be accounting, it can be anything. But if we own a business and we are a Baha'i business, we need to be more fair and just, even though you see that other people are doing and charging the regular price, we as the Baha'i should be charging at a fair and just price, that therefore that person who is needy or the person doesn't have the means to give the full price, then will be able to have that service done. And so I believe in that equity starts within ourselves, within our family and our businesses, and in that way it will spread out globally. And and that's what I think should be.
Thank you.
Thank you, Simone. We're going to go to another one. Can I have someone read this one, please?
Justice and equity are twin guardians that watch over men. From them are revealed such a blessed and perspicuous words as are the cause of the well-being of the world and the protection of the nation.
So this quote from the writings is saying that justice and equity, fairness in this case, are two important virtues that watch over people like guardians. These virtues are the source of words that are blessed and clear, and they are responsible for the well-being of the world and the protection of nations. The quote is emphasizing the importance of justice and equity as twin guardians, meaning that they are closely related and work together to protect people. The quote is stating that these virtues are responsible for the well-being of the world and the protection of nations, suggesting that a fair and just society is necessary for the well-being of all. Does anyone have any additional thoughts? Can I have someone read this, please?
The fruits of the tree of man are justice and equity. If he brings not forth these fruits, he is fit for the fire.
That's strong language. It's saying that the fruits or the outcomes of human actions are justice and equity. And this quote is emphasizing that if a person does not produce these fruits of justice and equity, meaning if they don't act in a way that is just and fair, they are not fit for society, and they are fit only for the fire. The metaphor of fire is often used in religious texts as a symbol of punishment or destruction. So does anyone have any thoughts about this?
So when somebody says business, they're committing a crime and excusing away their bad behavior.
Well, I believe in Justice is like a parent raising a child to be able to do anything they want. They go and hurt people. They go and destroy people, and they teach them to become a bad kid. It's like you have a farm with the grass and you have weeds. So when there is a justice and equity, a parent should raise their child with justice and equity. So that means that the child would be raised within boundaries, within knowing that if I do something this, is my mom and my dad going to be happy? If I do this, is it going to hurt someone? And the only way the child would learn is from the parents' actions. So the justice and equity comes from home, and it spreads to the kids, and the kids, it goes to the society that we live on. So all these things are very beautiful. And what it really means is that, like a tree, if bears a fruit, it's a good tree. But a tree that does not bear fruit is going to be thrown out, basically. No good. So, and that's what's happening to our community, with our society right now, that they're raising their children. They have 6, 8, 10 kids and living on the welfare. And unfortunately, they don't raise the children to be responsible for their action. They don't raise the children to be able to work together. I go to people's homes that they have a very large families, help them with their financial planning. And all of a sudden I see them, the parents are in nursing homes. They have kids, children, but the children don't want to take care of the parents. It's because they never been taught to be responsible, to be able to have a fairness within their family, justice within their family. And that is what bearing the fruits is. It comes from home. And that's why we have to educate the children with dignity, and we have to teach the children from childhoodness to be able to be conscious for their action. From childhood.
Sharon, you had something to say?
Yes, I did, on a large scale. And also I just want to add a little thing to just be me in terms of fire. In this context, it's ye old worldy fire, meaning like, absolute annihilation. But there is another kind of fire, which is the fire of the love of God. And these two things, equity and justice, are the key prerequisites for a peaceful and a global society. Because without either of those two things, you have a look around today and you can see very well the short commodity of real justice and equity and the kind of mess we have. I know we're working toward it, but it is not going to give us the basic fundamental purpose of this revelation, which is the unification of all mankind, along with the prerequisites, justice and equity. And I agree with the previous speaker, it starts with each of us, in our families, in our whānau. Yes, it does. However, on a global scale, if we really want to work towards world peace, those two elements are very important to laying that foundation. Because today we don't have, well, we may have very little of that. Just a thought. Thank you.
There is one comment I would like to give in regards to this concept of fire that is mentioned here.
Can you speak up, Kamran? Can you speak up, please?
One comment I would like to give in regard to this concept of fire that is mentioned here. I hope that we are not walking away, or the people who are listening to this conversation, they are not going to be walking away with the assumption that Baha'u'llah is prescribing some type of punishment for the individual, which is not the case here. he is using basically a metaphor that was used by Jesus Christ, where he compared the believers to the fruit trees. And it was the fruit of that tree, if they were true Christians, their fruit would provide sustenance to other people. And basically, if they did not produce fruits, they were compared to dead wood, basically, that it is not doing anything. So in this sense, if we are going to bring the history 2000 years to the present and how Baha'u'llah is using this, at the end of the day, if you look at the tree is useful at both levels. It could either, at multiple levels actually, it provides shade, it provides oxygen, it provides fruits, and at the end of the day, it also provides wood as fuel to be used. So in a sense, what Baha'u'llah is saying is that the highest degree of achievement that you could have is to be fruitful and to provide sustenance for others. Otherwise, what you will be providing to others would be at a different level of providing them just warmth rather than providing them with sustenance. So I just wanted to make sure that there is a different way that we look at this, that it does not appear as he is prescribing some type of a punishment, which is not the case, in my opinion.
Right.
you.
Yeah, no, of course, because it could be misunderstood as like a modern take on the concept of hell, right? Which we don't
Right.
ascribe to, So,
Josh, I have a question.
yeah, go ahead.
When you hear the background, somebody repeats and you hear an echo, is that because someone else has their second phone on, or one or two speakers, or one speaker? Is there something I'm doing wrong?
No,
Right.
unfortunately, it's a combination of both. If someone else has their microphone on, and it's going to get a little bit of feedback, especially if their speaker is turned up, and my microphone is very close to my speaker at the same time. So,
Okay, if I turn it down, I can hear the echo. Okay.
yeah. So the last thing I just want to say about this slide is, if a person does not produce these fruits, they are not fulfilling their purpose as a human being and are not fit for society, and more than likely will at some point face punishment or destruction, because that's what happens when people don't have this sense of justice or equity in their life to keep them from stepping out of bounds of what society deems appropriate. So let's go ahead and move on. Can I have someone read this, please?
Had all the people of the world been adorned with the ornament of equity, they would not have remained deprived of recognizing him who is the most great name and the King of eternity.
So it looks like in this context, this quote is saying if all people in the world were fair and just, they would not have been prevented from recognizing God, referred to as him who is the most great name and the King of eternity. The quote is emphasizing the importance of equity, fairness, and justice as an ornament that adorns humanity and allows them to see and recognize God. It's also suggesting that the lack of fairness and justice in the world is preventing people from recognizing the divine. It implies that when people act in a fair and just way, they are more able to understand and connect with God, or the divine essence. In summary, this quote is emphasizing that if all people in the world were fair and just, they would not have been prevented from recognizing God, Baha'u'llah, and that Equity, fairness, and justice is the ornament that adorns humanity and allows them to see and to recognize God. Any other thoughts before we move on? If man cleave unto the cord of equity, never, on account of any matter, will he remain shut out as by a veil. So anyone have any thoughts about what is meant here? This quote is saying that if a person adheres to the principle of equity, fairness, and justice, they will never be separated or shut out from the truth. The quote is emphasizing that the virtue of equity is like a cord that connects people to the truth, allowing them to understand and see things as they truly are. The quote is suggesting that if people act in a fair and just way, they will never be shut out from the truth and will have a clear understanding of the reality. The metaphor of being shut out as by a veil means that if people do not act in a fair and just way, they will be prevented from understanding the truth. It beseemeth you to fix your gaze upon all conditions, upon justice and fairness. This quote is saying that it is appropriate or fitting for people to focus on justice and fairness under all circumstances. It's emphasizing the importance of always keeping justice and fairness in mind, no matter the situation. It's encouraging people to always be mindful of the need for fairness and justice and to make it a priority in their thoughts and actions. It's suggesting that by focusing on justice and fairness, people will be able to navigate through difficult situations and make decisions that are fair and just. So, it's just saying that to focus on justice and fairness under all circumstances and encouraging people to always be mindful of the need for fairness and justice and to make it a priority in their thoughts and actions.
I would say is that when we are talking to our families, I like to use families for explanation, is because there's 3 siblings, 4 siblings, and they talk to each other, and the child, one makes a mistake, and the other child goes tell the mother, oh, this person did this to me, and so forth. And the mother doesn't know what's going on, and punish or discipline the child that didn't do anything. But it was the person who did it, they didn't want to admit that they did wrong. So that's not a justice. But if a family that was raised with truth with each other, with honesty with each other, with fairness with each other, which starts with the mother and father, the children, then they will learn that if they do make a mistake to a sibling, then they come say, Mom, Dad, this is my fault. It wasn't that person's fault, or my brother's fault, or my sister's fault. Then they come forward. The same thing in businesses. When we are in business and we are trying to promote our services to other people, if I'm selling a car, if I'm selling a house, if I am in a dentist or a physician, we need to be looking at it this way, that if this person is purchasing this from me, or I am advising them to take this medication, what is the consequence of this medication would that person be? Is it because pharmaceutical is paying me to promote this medication, or is this medication good for my patient to be healed? So that's, or if I sell this car that is a used car, and doesn't even run, but I'm selling it for $20,000, is this car going to come back to me and say it's not running? You see, that's called fair and justice. That it has to be with that own conscience, not me making the money from you. Me, I have to provide this car to be in great condition, so therefore you are able to drive it for a few years before it gives you some problem, or for at least a year before it gives you a problem. So my conscience should be such a way that when I provide you a medication, I will know that I'm taking this medication that's going to better myself. So this is the justice, or a conscience of that individual should know, is this good for the person that I'm giving it to? Or is this good service that I'm doing for that individual by selling the car, or by selling this pen? Is this pen good for me? Then I can sell that pen to you. But if it's not good for me, why would you sell it to somebody else? So all these things, if people learn to be conscious, half of the things they're doing, they will not be doing, because they know it's not good for themselves. Why would you promote that for someone else to have? And that's what the justice comes around, if people wake up their conscience.
Can I just say something to that, please?
Please go ahead.
That's on a microcosm, and yes, thank you so much. The next stage of that is consciousness was mentioned. If people, individuals, families, nations were actually conscious of justice and fairness, and admitting when they are not doing the right thing, and that current level of consciousness prevails, some of the conditions we find today will be eradicated through the development of conscious justice and fairness based on today this revelation, because it actually does away with any pseudo-justice or pseudo-fairness and gives the exact directive, the remedy for enabling justice and fairness individually, in our families, in our nations, and in our globe to actually advance. Just a thought.
Thank you. Can I have you read this next quote, Sharon?
Oh,
please.
We admonish thee under all conditions to observe equity and justice. These twain are the guides of the people and the protectors of the world of being. And I can't pronounce the reference, sorry.
Would come on,
This is
like
Faza'il Akhlaq.
Thank you.
So I think we can move on to the next one. Be ye the embodiments of justice and fairness amidst all creation. So this quote is specifically from the Kitab al-Iqdas, which is considered the most important work of Baha'u'llah. The quote is urging people to embody justice and fairness in all aspects of their lives, and to be the embodiment of these virtues amidst all creation. It's encouraging people to make justice and fairness a central part of their being, and to live these virtues in their actions and interactions with the world around them. It's encouraging people to be the standard of fairness and justice for others to follow, to be an example of these virtues in the society. And it's just It's urging people to embody justice and fairness amidst all of humanity, and to make these virtues the essential part of their life. Does anyone have any other thoughts? Okay.
There is actually a simple
Sorry.
recipe.
Yes?
There is a very simple recipe to consider when we are attempting to look at this dimension of the writings where Baha'u'llah is talking about certain attributes such as justice and equity. And that simple recipe is as follows. Human actions could be regulated at two different levels. One of them is at a moral level, the other one is at a rational level. So we need to be able to distinguish what factors are rational and what factors are moral. And the ones that are moral, the stake in the ground or the point of reference is something other than ourselves. Rational decisions are those decisions or those actions where the point of reference is within ourselves. So if I'm making a decision relative to what is good for me, that is a rational decision. I would always go and buy the stock and sell the stock when I can make money. I would never do it where I am going to lose money. I would always go and buy a piece of property because I want to have a gain in that. It's a rational decision. You will never find somebody who is going to go and buy something and after 5 years is going to sell it at a loss and say, I made a moral decision. However, moral decisions are activities in which the benefit is not necessarily for me or apparent to me. So those are the ones that are done with a different point of reference in mind, which is Baha'u'llah. That's why Baha'u'llah represents himself as the scale in the book of Aqdas. And he says that I am the scale according to which you will make your judgments about all things. And he's referring to these moral judgments. So in my opinion, it would be very good if we can teach our children that if you are going to be making a decision that has to do with justice, fairness, about telling the truth, about being honest, and so on and so forth, you are making those decisions relative to this stake in the ground who we call Baha'u'llah. He has provided those guidelines. Sometimes you can find parallelism on that in the society as well. For example, a person is a patriot. It is not because patriotism is not because it's a rational activity. It is a moral type of an activity relative to the different scale. And that scale is love of one's country. So rather than loving oneself, the person puts the love for the love of the country. And as a result, they are willing to give up their lives for their country or for other citizens. Sorry for being long-winded here, but I thought that might be of benefit to consider.
Thank you for that.
Excuse me. I want to say about embodiments of justice, as Mr. Hakim mentioned that. Also, the embodiment for children. That's why Baha'u'llah, in the manifestation of the Baha'i Faith, has brought us beautiful prayers. And one of those prayers are called obligated prayers. And the obligated prayers, it prepares us for how to behave with our family, how to behave with ourselves, and how to behave with our community at large. And it prepares us to have conscience, which means it would tell us that there is God and there is one God that we have to love and cherish. And when we put God above ourselves, then when we live our day of daily life would be based on what can I do to do good things in that day. So when I sleep, I know I did good. And God can see that. And that's called embodiments of justice. It means we are prepared, our body in the morning, to be able to go out there and serve our community, help our neighbors, based on that we say our prayer, we know God is watching us. And then the justice and fairness will come, because we know that if, just like a child, does everything possible to make the mother happy, to make the father happy. And when we wake up our conscience to know that God is watching us, then we prepare ourselves to do good that day, so that when we sleep, we know God is accept us, what we have done. And if by mistake we made a mistake, God knows we made a mistake. We're not going to do that anymore. And we can go fix that by being honest and truthful to that person. I am sorry, I did that. Here, this is, I think I overcharged you for this thing. I'm here to give it back to you. As long as we understand we made the mistake and we don't do it again, God is watching us. God can see what goes on in our heart and our mind. Sorry.
Adorn, O people, your temples with the mantle of justice, for it beseemeth all souls, could ye but perceive it. So this quote is a metaphor for the hearts and souls. It's saying that it is appropriate or fitting for people to incorporate justice in their inner self and to cover their inner selves with this virtue. It's encouraging people to make justice an integral part of their being, to make it a fundamental aspect of their inner selves. It implies that by doing so, they will be able to perceive the beauty and importance of this virtue and its impact on society. It implies that by doing so, people will be able to perceive just how important this virtue is. Any other thoughts?
I have a question. So about this idea of the temple. So like the temple is like is representative of our human body though at the same time. So yes, it's a metaphor, but we also have this concept of, for example, adorn yourselves. So in the quotes we have, like, let deeds, not words, be your adorning. So let what you wear, what people see about you, be your deeds. So on that same theme, I see this as our temples, our human bodies, what people see when they look at us, being the mantle of justice. So it's like a mantle is what would be going on our shoulders. So we would be holding on our shoulders the mantle of justice. So people would see that it's on your shoulders, that you're bearing that weight when you are doing something that pertains to other people, whether it be yourself or others. You care about how you affect others, whether it's justice as to what you buy, how you buy something, whether you're honest, whether you are lying when you make an engagement in a transaction. Are you charging someone a fair amount, fair price? Are you overcharging them? This mantle of justice is something that people see. So when they come to you, they believe that what you're doing is in the best interests of that person because you care about justice. What do you think about that?
I think it's lovely. Thanks for sharing, John. It's good to have you. Been missing you. Let's go to the next one. Would you like to read this, John? It's a lot.
Sure, no problem. O peoples of the earth, Know ye that justice hath ranks, stations, and significances beyond reckoning. We shall, however, shed upon you a mere sprinkling from this ocean, that it may cleanse you from the defilement of injustice and cause you to be numbered with the sincere. Know verily that the essence of justice and the source thereof are both embodied in the ordinances prescribed by him who is the manifestation of the self of God amongst men, if ye be of them that recognize this truth. He doth verily incarnate the highest, the infallible standard of justice unto all creation. Were his law to be such as to strike terror into the hearts of all that are in heaven and on earth, that law is not but manifest justice. The fears and agitation which the revelation of this law provoketh in men's hearts should indeed be likened to the cries of the suckling babe weaned from his mother's milk, if ye be of them that perceive.
So, I think this quote is stating that justice has many levels, positions, and meanings that are beyond comprehension. It further states that the manifestation of God, which refers to Baha'u'llah, is the embodiment of the highest infallible standard of justice for all creation. It's emphasizing that the ordinances or laws prescribed by the manifestation of God are the essence and source of justice. The quote is pointing out that the laws revealed by the manifestation of God might seem severe to some people, but in reality, they are the manifestations of justice. It implies that the fears and agitations that these laws might cause in people's hearts are similar to the crises or the cries of a child when it's weaned from its mother's milk, and that this reaction is normal for those who truly understand the nature of these laws. This quote is essentially, in summary, it's just saying that the justice has many levels and that the manifestation of God is the embodiment of the highest infallible standard of justice for all of creation. I think that's the main point to take away. Any other thoughts?
I know in the recording it'll be heard easier, but could you repeat the last sentence you said?
So the last sentence is, it's emphasizing that the ordinances and laws prescribed by the manifestation of God are the essence and source of justice, and that even though these laws might seem severe, they are the manifestations of justice.
So something that I understood from the last sentence, where it talks about the fears and agitation which the revelation of this law provoketh in men's hearts, it should indeed be likened to the cries of the suckling babe weaned from his mother's milk. This concept is telling me that the amount to which I could cling to this justice is motivated by my desire for it, because I view it as my life source. So in short, what I mean is a baby, and my wife has one, and I have one together, when this baby that we have is clinging to her, begging her for milk in a baby way, crying for it, very clearly they make signals they want to have this milk. My point is, you realize that the baby views it as the source of its being. This baby cannot survive without it. And of course, we can say there's formula out there and all these other alternative food sources for babies. The point, though, is that it signifies that we look to justice as the source of our being. So in this case, I mean to say, my tranquility, feeling at peace at night, that someone isn't going to come and rob me, someone isn't going to come and burn my house down, feeling the peace that my money is going to remain where it sits right now, tomorrow, the day after that, feeling at peace when I'm driving on the road that I am safe, feeling at peace when I'm in any realm of my life doing something that has an assumption that there is a law maker, a law enforcer, there's someone going to protect me. This is something that a lot of people don't share in this planet today. A lot of people do not feel safe. They do not feel that they are taken care of. And when people don't feel safe, there's a very big problem that happens psychologically, and in general, their lives are miserable. And looking at this, the idea of justice as a source of my being, definitely, I recognize it at a level that if I don't have justice, if I don't have a common set of rules that we all follow, then I may be dead tomorrow, just like anyone else who is subject to being murdered for any reason, except for the laws stopping that from happening. So I'm not saying that someone wants to go after me now. I'm not saying that. I'm just simply saying that these laws that we have in force today are what protects us. And if we don't have these laws in place today to protect us, some people who want to commit an act for the sake of doing it, they will engage in that act. And we may be the victim of that act. And therefore, for the source of our very being remaining alive, we will cling to this as the way for society that is global in nature, no longer just a matter of countries, but a global society to exist at peace without destroying itself.
Thanks for sharing that, John. Sharon, did you want to say something?
Yes. I mean, I reiterate all that. That's very heartfelt, and of course, but I would like to look at fears and agitation about the embryonic development of each and every one of us and humanity, and the fear and agitation when real justice, referenced real justice, is being presented both by advocates and people who are committed to that, wearing that mantle, but also about how real and how very different from perceptions in an embryonic state of development is. And that, to me, on a broader scale, the agitation, and the lightening of it, of people's reaction to that is the cries of the suckling babe being weaned from its mother's milk, is really could be looked at as the old understanding of what that is, and this new understanding, this new milk, being given to nurture an ever-advancing civilization. So I just wanted to look at it in that regard, because you see, this is not just for us. Until the vast majority of humankind embrace equity and justice in its real sense, we won't have any peace. So just a thought, and of course, all that John said.
Thank you, Sharon. So we have a few more minutes, so I'd like to try to get through these as quickly as we can. If I can have someone read these, all three, and then we'll discuss it.
And a part of justice is to render unto each his due. Say, O people, adorn your temples with the ornaments of justice, then judge ye accordingly as God had judged in the tablets. And be not of them that transgress. And towards the end of this incomparable tablet he says, they verily who contend and strive with the people, these have departed from the paradise of justice, and are accounted among the unjust in God's mighty and guarded tablets.
So this is simply saying that, that a component of justice is to give each person what they are entitled to, or what is rightfully theirs. It implies that a fair and just society is one in which everyone is treated fairly and given what they are due, whether it be rights, resources, or opportunities. The quote is emphasizing the importance of fairness and impartiality in the distribution of resources and opportunities, and the need to ensure that everyone is treated equitably. Now, with that being said, Kamran gave a perfect example that equity to a large extent can be viewed in the eye of the beholder, right? That from a third-party perspective, it could be seen as just in one case and unjust in another. This quote is stating that a component of justice is to give each person what they are entitled to or what is rightfully theirs, emphasizing the importance of fairness and impartiality in the distribution of resources and opportunities. And then it's going on encouraging people to adorn their temples, which is another metaphor for their hearts and souls, with the ornament of justice, meaning like adorning to put justice at the center of one's life and the way in which they approach every aspect of their lives. It's also about instructing people to judge according to God's laws as revealed in the tablets, which is a reference to the holy text. It's a warning people not to be among those who break or disobey these laws. And that's pretty much it. Any other thoughts? We have a few more slides and then we'll be done. Can I have
Jeremiah,
yes.
I would like to say that the beautiful thing with Google, internet, that we have is opening up all those people who wanted to steal from the poor, innocent people. They don't realize that the law of Baha'u'llah, which is independent investigation of truth, is what? We want to go shopping, we want to buy something, or we want to go see a physician, we want to go do a business with real estate, or we want to do accounting, or whatever it is, we can shop around. We can see if this person is honest or is lying to you. So what it is that the beautiful, what's happening, the evolution of internet has created that we can go and search the truth with our own eyes, not with the eyes of people who call themselves professionals, and they will steal from other people. So that's a beautiful thing, and we are having more. Maybe we are having a turbulent society right now, but if you look at it in another way around, people are waking up that how much they have been stolen, the people have stolen from them. They call themselves professional and they take people's money and they don't give it back. So, don't say that. It's not that. Don't tell the truth. Yes, but there is many people who are saying that stock market, they do them, and many people buy the stock market, and all of a sudden the company lies about their final accounting numbers, and they don't give people money, and they lost everything they have in their life. So that's not right. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is that the technology of finding the internet has created a great avenue for people like me, you, and everyone to be able to find the truth with their own eyes. And thank you.
I think it's also important, Simone, to go through these last few slides to sum up what we as individuals can do, especially in the Baha'i community, and because of course it always starts with the individual. Be fair to yourselves and to others, that the evidences of justice may be revealed through your deeds among our faithful servants. Justice hath a mighty force at its command. It is none other than reward and punishment for the deeds of men, By the power of this force, the tabernacle of order is established throughout the world, causing the wicked to restrain their natures for fear of punishment. O people of God, that which traineth the world is justice, for it is upheld by two pillars, reward and punishment. These two pillars are the source of life to the world. So, the quotes are encouraging people to be fair and just in their action, both towards themselves and towards others, in order for the signs of justice to be revealed through their deeds. It also highlights that justice is a powerful force that is responsible for reward and punishment for people's actions, and it is the foundation of order in the world. It suggests that people's fear of punishment is what keeps them from committing wrongdoings. And it also mentions that justice is upheld by two pillars, reward and punishment. And these two pillars are the sources of life to the world. It implies that the idea of reward and punishment is essential for maintaining justice and order in society. And I think it's just important that we keep that in mind. Can I have someone read this? We're out of time, but we're very close. We have a few more slides, so if we can go through these, then we'll be done with this presentation. Would someone read?
The word of God, which the supreme pen hath recorded on the sixth leaf of the most exalted paradise, is the following. The light of men is justice. Quench it not with the contrary winds of oppression and tyranny. The purpose of justice is the appearance of unity among men. By the righteousness of God, justice is a powerful force. It is, above all else, the conqueror of the citadels of the hearts and the souls of men, and the revealer of the secrets of the world of being, and the standard bearer of love and bounty. The fruits of the tree of man are justice and equity. If he brings not forth these fruits, he is fit for fire. Pride hath blinded alike their inner and their outer eyes. The world is indeed of two things, order and justice.
Thank you very much. There's one more which has quotes from, let's go ahead and let's go to the last one from Abdu'l-Baha, and then we can wrap up. From His Holiness Abdu'l-Baha. God be praised, the Sun of Justice hath risen above the horizon of Baha'u'llah. For in his tablets the foundation of such a justice have been laid as no mind hath from the beginning of creation conceived. Just as forgiveness is an attribute of mercifulness, so also justice is an attribute of lordship. The tent of existence is upheld upon the pillar of justice and not upon forgiveness. The continuance of mankind dependeth upon justice and not upon forgiveness. The second attribute of perfection is justice and impartiality. This means to have no regard for one's own personal benefits and selfish advantages, and without respect or regard of any quarter, to carry out the laws of God among his creatures. So, the first quote is saying that Baha'u'llah, the founder of the Baha'i Faith, has brought a new understanding of justice that has never been seen before. The second quote is saying that justice is an important attribute of God. It is necessary for the tent of existence to be upheld, and it is important for the continuation of mankind. The third quote is saying that justice and impartiality is one of the attributes of perfection, and it means to act without any regard for one's own personal benefits and selfish advantages, to carry out the laws of God among his creatures. And so it's basically emphasizing that justice is an attribute of God, and it is necessary for the continuation of humanity. So is there any other last thoughts on this?
Yes, please. The beautiful thing, what it says about is means when we go see a physician shouldn't look at what's in for his pocketbook. He should look at what is the best interest of the patient, what they should advise the patient to do that they can be healed, not prescribe them the medications that will cause them more hardships in other kind of diseases, create more diseases or more fragile conditions that it will be not suitable for the patient. And unfortunately, the medical practice these days, that's what they're doing. They're not looking at the best interest of the patient. They're looking at what can they do to make more profit from the pharmaceutical and from other people. So, and I'm sorry, I'm not attacking any kind of occupation. It's just I'm giving you an example.
Well, I think it's important. Excuse me. I think it's important to remember that these systems are all part of the old way of doing things, and they're going to continue to collapse under the weight of the injustice of the individuals who participate in them from that standpoint. And so there's not much that can be done. That's just that's what's going to happen. I think it's far more important that we focus on getting people to realize that justice and equity is it happens. It's an outgrowth of what people do who ascribe to a moral code of conduct, to a belief in a higher power and in God and God's messenger and manifestation. Because from that standpoint, it's a basis by which everyone can have a foundational understanding of how all of humanity can move forward in equity and justice. And that's, it's kind of like we got to focus on the end goal, right? And continue to work towards achieving that. Okay, I appreciate everyone's time, and I appreciate everyone who joined tonight and who read. Thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing everyone next week. Just on a note, Steve Sorowitz is going to give a talk tomorrow at the Clearwater Baha'i Center, so it would be wonderful to have anyone who's in the Tampa Bay area come and join. Details are on the websites. That starts at 7 p.m. We will also stream that live to Facebook and YouTube. And on Wednesday, Peter Terry is continuing our in-depth reading, home study of the Kitab-i-Iqan, which is the Book of Certitude, which is the theological framework of Baha'u'llah and the Baha'i Faith. And then on Sunday, we have a new guest speaker that's going to be talking about Baha'u'llah and the harmony between science and religion and the mysticism of faith. So look forward to that. I wish you all a wonderful evening, and I'll talk to you later. Have a great day.
Thank
evening.
you.